Okay, this is one that not everybody's going to want to watch because I'm in my feelings today, okay? It started last night. Lonesome Dove was on Grit, and Lonesome Dove is one of those cowboy movies that I have to watch. Kind of like Tombstone, El Dorado. When they're on, I must watch them, at least for a little while. When I turned it on last night, it was to the part where Gus and Woodrow's friend had fallen in with the horse thieves. He didn't really want to be with the horse thieves, but he was stuck with them, couldn't figure out a way out of it, and he stood through some really bad stuff and didn't run away when he should have. He didn't shoot his way out when he should have. He just went along with the evil misdeeds they were doing. They were stealing horses. They were killing sodbusters for no reason. He didn't agree with it. He didn't want to be there. He didn't want to be part of it, but he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And his old friends caught up to him, and they were put in a position where they had to hang him because he had been an accessory to too many. I mean, they were the judge and the jury out there because they were on the open range. And they hung him with the horse thieves. And I was watching it, and Erin didn't understand why. She's sitting there with me, and she was not really paying attention. And something would happen, and I'd comment on it, and she'd be like, I'm not watching it. And I said, this is the best part of the movie, and it is. They go to hang him. He's on his horse, and he doesn't make them do it. He hangs himself. He kicks the horse, and they didn't actually have to pull the trigger as it was. And then when he's dead, Gus says he died real fine, didn't he?
Yes, sir, he died fine, didn't he?
And he was proud of him because in his last act, he acknowledged his guilt. He didn't beg for his life. He asked them not to hold it against him, and he died. And so that's where I started getting in my feelings because it's a really tough thing to watch. And it's also real tough for me because those guys are archetypes. Gus, Woodrow, all those cowboys remind me of the people I grew up with and the men that I learned how to be a man from and took cues from and watched do really hard things that they didn't want to do sometimes. We never had to hang anybody, but I watched them do some pretty hard stuff. And I heard their stories, and I know the other hard things that they had to do in life. I know the hard things I've had to do. And then I've had to go and bury most of those men. I was telling the kids the other day, half the people I know are dead. That's really hard whenever you get to my age. I'm to the age where the people I know from school are having heart attacks, and some of them are dead, and they're getting cancer. And it seems like it's just one bad story after the other. So I watched that last night, and I was kind of ruminating on that over the night during the sleepless hours. And then this morning I get up, and Toby Keith has passed. And I think about people like that. You know, Prince died a few years ago, and I took that one really hard because Prince is a musical genius, was a musical genius, and somebody that had been there my whole life. He was an icon. Toby Keith, to some extent, is an icon. And that last swan song that he put out, Don't Let the Old Man In, that's pretty strong stuff for a man who's staring death down the barrel. And so this morning, I'm talking to a client, somebody I've known for years, and we're talking about how expensive things are and how they'd really like to do this, but they don't know about the money. And I said, look, this is not a sales pitch, but what I'm figuring out is if you want to do it, you have to do it now because your kids are getting ready to be grown. You don't even realize how fast it happens. And I know there's no 20-somethings watching this probably, but if you are, this thing picks up speed every year. It gets ridiculous. It's gotten ridiculous for me in the last 5 years. The number of funerals, the number of disasters. The longer you live, the more people you're going to bury and the harder it's going to get every year and the faster it's going to go every year. And so what I'm telling you today is if you've got something to do, go do it. It's not about the money. Over the weekend, I got to be really careful how I say this. I watched some people worshiping at the altar of money and success. Let's just put it that way. And it's a fake altar, really. But I watch people I know. Somebody this morning said to me they hate the amount of glad handing that goes on in this town. And I was like, yeah, I don't like it either, and I don't do it for the most part. I'm not going to say I've never tolerated anybody that I didn't want to, because I have, because I got to make a living, and you've got to work with people you don't like sometimes, but I'm getting a lot more choosy about it, and I'm turning away money more than I ever thought I would, and it's not because I've got plenty. It's because I don't care about it as much as I used to. Part of that's probably because I've given up a little bit, because I've seen what it takes to get it, and there's some levels I will not stoop to. But part of it is just knowing your worth and being like, yeah, my self-respect is worth more than that amount of money, so I'm not going to do that thing. But I watched people over the weekend worshiping at the altar of everything fake. Fake success stories, fake appearances, fake success, really, a lot of it. I remember that old country song by the Oak Ridge Boys, I think, or Statler's, I don't remember which. And they talk about what it takes to be a country star. And one of the lines is, say you're making more than you are. And that's what everybody does in every business, I guess. When I was on the farm, it was always the joke that if you were in the grain line behind so-and-so, never to say, how much you were making, because they were always going to be making 10 bushels more. First liar never had a chance. And I've seen that in the real estate business. I've seen it in every business. Everybody's lying. They're talking gross numbers. Nobody wants to talk net numbers. And the people that do really well generally don't have to tell you about it. So that's another thing. Go back and watch Downton Abbey sometimes, because it's one of my favorite shows. And there's the sequence, I guess, in season 2 where one of them is going to marry. You guys have probably never watched it. She's going to marry the newspaper magnate. And he had made all of his money the hard way. He didn't inherit it like her family did. And there's a scene where he's talking about how much money he's got and how he can buy things, and she stops and she says, "Oh, do try and get over that. It makes you sound so angry all the time." And a lot of people do. When the subject of money comes up, they just sound angry. And however I've gotten there, I'm glad I've gotten to a place where I'm not angry about it. The things I get angry about is, and I'm going to throw this name out there because I don't know him, but he could stand in for people I do know, and that's Joel Osteen. I saw a comedian talking about him the other day and what a dirtbag he was, because during the flooding in Texas, there was a mattress store owner that opened up his store to help people that have been displaced by the flooding, and basically just said, whatever it takes, we'll make sure you got a place to sleep. And he said Joel Osteen wouldn't even let him into his church because he had just had it remodeled. And, televangelists, you could point at several of them and say, they're basically just enriching themselves at poor people's expense. Dave Ramsey, I've made that example before. I don't like Dave Ramsey. He has made a fortune off poor people. I don't think everything he says is wrong. I don't think he always gives bad advice. I've heard him give bad advice on real estate especially. But for the most part, he's gotten rich off people that are really in debt. And they buy his programs and they buy his books. And so he tells really basic stuff and has gotten rich, and then talks down and demeans the people that he's supposed to be helping. I don't like that. There are local examples of the same thing that I'm talking about, and I don't like that. Whether I should or not, I've always provided what I think to you for free. Probably because nobody would pay to go to my seminar, but at the same time, if I think something, I'll tell you. And if you can use it to make money, then I encourage you to do that. But what I'm also encouraging you to do today is not care about the money so much, because it doesn't matter, because none of us are getting out alive. So the moral of today's story is, if you've got something to do, go do it, because you don't know how much time you got. There might be a head-on collision in your future next week. There might be a cancer diagnosis next month. There might be a heart attack next year. And that goes for all ages. You don't know. So whatever you got to do it today. So that's the positive note for this week, and that's all for today.
Have him call?
A man of vision, you say?